What's up, Longhorn Nation? Welcome to the Deep Dive Live. I'm Paul. That's Ian. We were all prepared to take a bunch of questions from the Inside Texas board and answer them. But you got to be prepared in life to take a turn, and we got to address a couple of elephants in the room. Texas has a new new coach who coached cornerbacks, may coach something else at Texas in Mark Orfeh. And then Texas lost a key recruiter and a key staff member in running backs coach Tashard Choice to the Detroit Lions. We're going to start off talking about Tashard Choice, but before we do that, we want to make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, talk to us in the chat, and then most of all, go become a part of the best Longhorn conversation on the planet at Inside Texas. Go join. It will cost you a measly amount of dollars to become the most informed Longhorn fan on the planet. All right, Ian, what's going on, man? You ready to talk about Tashard Choice?
I'm ready. One of the more popular coaches on the staff, by all accounts.
One of the more popular coaches, a coach that's pretty dynamic as a recruiter. Running back coach Tashard Choice is leaving for the NFL, specifically Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. He's going to be reunited with Jahmyr Gibbs, his former star pupil. And Jahmyr Gibbs has been tearing up the NFL along with the rest of that Detroit Lions backfield. That's the best running offense in the NFL, other than the Eagles. And I think Tashard Choice, look, he wants to be an NFL coach. I don't begrudge that one bit. It's a good situation, good team, and we wish him the best there. But it is going to leave a little bit of a void for Texas that we need to fill fairly quickly.
Yeah. Spring, whatever they're doing this spring is coming up. There's rehabs to monitor. Then there's the spring practice format, whatever it is, to monitor. And then the spring portal window. As we've talked about a lot of times, there's a lot of interesting names in the Texas running back room, but there are no surefire stars in there. There's, Baxter, we think maybe could be that if he's all the way recovered and is also able to make improvements that he was expected to make after his freshman year. You got Trey Wisner, who's very solid, but needs to gain a lot of mass to hold up. You got Jarrett Gibson, who's promising, but not a star by any means as a freshman. I think we were both hoping that this spring they would try to get maybe a 1 year, one and done transfer, surefire lead back. And if that's going to happen, the new coach is going to have to make some quick connections, it seems like.
Yeah, I think that's true. More broadly, in terms of running back coach, probably the least technical coaching position on your staff, and probably has the least and lightest load of any coach on your staff in terms of just on-field coaching. The real value of a running backs coach is the value add, which is typically as a recruiter. In other words, they're tasked with creating recruiting relationships beyond just their position. They're actually asked to help out geographically in other areas or with other positions or key guys that Texas wants to get. Tashard Choice, I think, really grew in that role the longer he was at Texas. And of course, I think he was regarded as a good technical coach as well. But I think the real value was as a recruiter. So I think that's what Texas will be looking to. Every now and then you will have a running backs coach whose value add is like as an offensive mind or as an adjunct play caller or, designer. If you'll recall, Major Applewhite was a running back coach for Texas. And he was heavily involved in the offense. So that is a route, but it's a far less common route. I think we'll just go for a recruiter. I think we're probably going to opt or prefer youth if possible, but I'm sure we'll take a good recruiter in whatever package we get. And the truth is, if we get a new running backs coach, he may have someone that he coached that he wants to bring to Texas with him. So that is a possibility.
That'd be a win for sure.
So what we're saying is we probably want to bring Notre Dame's running back coach to Texas. Is that what we're saying?
That would be great. There's some running backs on their roster that are pretty good.
Yep, I've heard that.
A couple, really.
Yeah. So let me I don't really want to get into the current recruiting cycle because we don't even know who it is that would be the running backs coach. But I think that you're going to see Stark act pretty quickly on filling this role. Is that fair?
I would assume so, just because the time constraint we just talked about. You also figure Sark is an offensive guy. His Rolodex for what he wants in a running backs coach and names that could meet the bill, it feels like that would be something he has easily accessible. Also, Johnny Nansen, I think, was a running backs coach at one time in his career and has been at USC and UCLA and all these places. Nansen may also have some recommendations. I'm not at all, please no one think that I'm suggesting Nansen is going to switch to running backs coach. Do not think that's going to happen. But I bet he has some ideas as well. So it shouldn't be that hard, right?
Yeah, and I'll say I do think that this won't completely catch us blindsided.
Yeah.
In that we had known that this was a potential possibility when the Cowboys were kicking the tires on choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Sark had already sent out some feelers and done some evaluations and made a short list. So we should not be completely caught and blindsided by this. But hey, this is part of the cycle. And a sign of success is that you're going to graduate players to the NFL. And sometimes you graduate coaches to the NFL as well.
I wonder also on the Sark and Nansen probably have a lot of connections out in the West Coast.
Yeah.
But one of the big value adds that Choice was known for was he could hit up the Atlanta area, which is that the most talented metro area in the country?
Dallas, broader metro, Dallas and Atlanta.
Those would be probably number one and number two.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I don't even know which one is number one, but it's way up there. That was really valuable. You could see in this last class they had like 3 or 4 Georgia kids in there, and none of them were running backs, which just goes to show the work he's doing to unearth possible Longhorns and connect them to other staffers. So that would be nice to replace if they can, would be to get somebody else that can hit that area effectively.
Living rent free in UT asks Drayton, Samples, or Carrington. None of the above. Drayton, no. I think he's a good guy. I think that he had a pretty narrow recruiting appeal and a narrow recruiting focus, which was just his position room. And that's not what we want out of the running back coach. And frankly,
he was good at it, though. He was good at it, though.
He had some hits and he had plenty of misses that I think get glossed over.
Really?
Bijan Robinson, I think, covered up a lot. But Samples, I think, unlikely, just because I don't think Oregon would allow that to happen. And then Carrington, interesting. So the idea is that he would go from our personnel staff and actually become a position coach.
He's not in the he's already a position coach somewhere else now.
Is he? Was he the running back coach?
He's been gone for a couple of years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean he was a personnel guy for us. I thought he was a recruiting personnel guy for
I think, is he at Arizona or Arizona State? Is that right? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Once guys leave, I sort of just ignore them.
Arizona State, says the producer.
Okay. I don't know. I
don't know that he's like, if an objective person that could actually do this were to rank the top up and coming running backs coaches in the country, I don't know if Carrington is on there. I think he's just somebody that we've heard of.
Yeah.
Because he's been here before.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency for Texas fans to list out people they know.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily the best options. But yeah, I'm pretty certain it won't be Stan Drayton. I'm pretty certain it won't be Mr. Samples.
If you can guess who your head coach is going to hire based off of thinking of position coaches in the past that you can remember being as connected to your university, you're probably not going to be very good, and you're probably Oklahoma.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey, we'll see how this develops.
Yeah.
Sark has made a list. He's now checking it twice. And we'll find out if our choice is naughty or nice, right? But I'm pretty confident. I mean, it's a great job. And I think that Texas will get someone pretty good for that position. I'm not super concerned about it. Hey, let's talk about a guy we did get. But before we do that, I want to talk about a guy you want to get on your side when you're doing a mortgage. His name is Gabe Woodsoe. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. He will never abandon us for the Detroit Lions or Detroit or Michigan. He is a Texan through and through. He's also a really damn good mortgage guy. If you are buying a house, it's the most important financial decision of your life. Get the best possible team. Gabe is going to be the captain of that team. Over 20 years in the industry, former National Merit Scholar, UT grad. He has a law degree. This guy is operating at the most elite level of the profession. He's in the top 1% of all mortgage originators in the United States of America. He's great at what he does, and he is fantastic working with our folks, and they rave about him. Go read his Google reviews. Give him a call, 832-557-1095. All right, Texas did add someone. And who is that, Mr. Boyd?
Rutgers cornerback coach Mark Orfeh.
Yep. Texas hires DB coach Mark Orfeh from Rutgers. Let's get familiar with Mr. Orfeh. He's an interesting guy, and he's a guy who's actually returning to the great state of Texas. Played his high school ball at Galena Park, North Shore. That's Greater Houston. Then he played at Texas Southern at corner. And then he went on and had a coaching career at he was a GA and a analyst at South Carolina. He coached at Utah State, coached at Montana State for Jeff Choate. I think that's where a connection was made with Texas. And Jeff Choate thinks highly of Mark Orfeh. And then he went to work for Alabama and Nick Saban for a year, took that finishing school, and then has been with Rutgers the last 3 years and working for Greg Schiano. So let's just kind of give a quick overview of Mr. Orfeh and talk a little bit about him.
Did you say, I don't know if I realized this. No, Montana State and Utah State. I thought maybe I'd heard you say Michigan State.
Nope.
Which would have been interesting. But no. Now that I've derailed it, go ahead.
All right, good job. So we've added Orfeh. He is not coming in to coach safeties, as has been reported in several media outlets. He is probably most likely going to coach our corners, and then Terry Joseph is going to move to safeties. Terry Joseph has coached safeties many times and before, in fact, maybe more comfortable there. Orfeh is a pure corner guy. Interesting thing about Rutgers, that's a team I'm somewhat familiar with. Their strength has been their defense. It was not last year. They had a bunch of injuries. Things sort of fell apart. I think there were some issues with the defensive coordinator as well. He is now the head coach at UMass, and Rutgers is hiring a new DC. But they have a long track record, not just Rutgers, but also Greg Schiano more broadly, of NFL cornerback success.
Yeah.
Defensive back play is sort of what they hang their hat on at Rutgers. And that sort of leads their defenses. In 2023, they actually had a pretty elite defense led by their corners. Orfeh himself has put a couple of guys in the NFL, most recently Max Melton, who was a second-round draft pick. And I think he's with the Cardinals. Yeah. And broadly, Greg Schiano, he has mixed reactions from fans and media. But the fact is, as a pure coach, he's outstanding. And he has a really good reputation as a developer of young coaches. And he tends to have young staffs. And I think Mark Orfeh checks that box. And I think I like the fact that he's gone. First of all, he came up sort of the hard way in coaching Utah State and the Montana States. He's been challenged in different environments, doesn't always have overwhelming talent. Then he went to the finishing schools of Nick Saban and Greg Schiano. What are your thoughts with regards to that sort of broader background for a guy who's under 40 and still growing in the position.
Very promising and kind of fits where the game is going. Like it feels like as we just saw with Tashard Choice, as soon as a coach gets some years under his belt and some skins on the wall, they either want to be like a coordinator or they want to go pro or they want to get out of the rat race of recruiting and direct player management of NIL. That is a beating, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a high energy, like, hey, go hit the road, visit 30 Texas high schools, talk with the coaches, talk with the players. It's, it's a weed out kind of job. And you need the young, hungry, up and coming people to do it and to do it well. Because the older guys we've seen a million times, they'll start to get a little lazy on the trail and with their evaluations and all that. And that's another reason why it's probably better that it's a younger name than somebody that we've all heard of that's been at it for a long time.
Yeah, and I think, frankly, there's a generational gap as you get older as a coach. You also get more established. So when you're 45 years old, you really don't want to be texting with a 16-year-old a lot. and when you're a younger coach and you're still hungry and you're still trying to get somewhere, you'll do whatever. You'll do whatever needs to be done to make your bones. And you do need that sort of hunger. And so I always thought Nick Saban did a really nice job of having a couple of veterans on his staff, but mostly a lot of young guys, young, hungry guys. And his goal was to work them hard and churn them over. And he was very comfortable with that model. So I think Orfe is going to be very interesting. And then the other thing, I think he appears to be exposed to some different coaching methodologies and constructs that I think are always helpful. PK is pretty flexible. Yep. He doesn't have a ton of ego, which is great.
Especially on the back.
Sorry?
I was going to say, especially on the back end.
Yeah, and especially on the back end where he really is more comfortable on the front end. He'll outsource the back end to other coaches. Nansen already on staff, Terry Joseph, and now we've got another guy who's a voice in the room helping to construct game plans and approach, and he's fresh. Now, Rutgers does a lot on defense. I kind of went to school on them last night and early this morning. They do a lot of disguise, but quite a bit of cover 4. And quarters is the other way we describe that, something we are familiar with. But there's different ways to play quarters, and there's different ways in which you match it, and you turn it into a de facto man coverage, depending on what the offense does, or you actually play it as a pure zone. Hey, here's my narrow slice of the field from here to the back of the end zone behind me. I've got this. And you could play both. And you can also, the good thing about cover 4, you could switch in and out of it pretty adeptly right before the snap and not give away the plot to a quarterback. So I think that'll be an interesting reinvigoration of ideas in the room. What do you think, Ian?
Well, I noticed they also played a lot of pressed man.
Yes.
Either quarters or in single high. And if you were going to make a criticism of Terry Joseph, it's that he has not produced a lot of press man corners. And his best corner last year, Jahdae Barron, played a lot of off zone. He was awesome at it. It worked great. I have no complaints. But if you wanted to add more press coverage into the mix, then I think this hire makes a lot of sense. And I kind of wonder if, to me, it seems like teaching anticipation in zone is probably Terry Joseph's greatest strength and makes him a better safety coach than it does a corners coach.
Yes.
And I think that really precise technique and footwork and fundamentals of man coverage are an area where Texas could be upgraded. Like the Texas' secondary, I think, could be potentially upgraded as a result of that shuffle.
Well, I'm a capitalist, so I know that demand drives value. And one thing about Orfe that's encouraging is we're not the first team to come calling to try to hire him. In fact, he's only been at Rutgers for 3 years, and he's been extended twice. So they brought him on early after his first year. They loved him. They extended him. After his second year, and he turned out some NFL corners, and I think people really liked how Rutgers played defense, particularly in 2023. Several bigger name programs came calling. Rutgers extended him again, and then we've had year 3, and Texas came, and paying off his extension and his contract, I'm sure, is not an issue for Texas. So that's an encouraging thing, that other people want him, right? So I think there's some value in showing that the market was very interested in Orfe as well. I also love the Texas connections, but he had to kind of travel a pretty circuitous route to come back home. This is a guy who's effectively coached 15 years elsewhere, and now he gets to come back to Texas with the sum total of that experience, and he gets to recruit his own backyard. So I think that's very encouraging for Orfe. I also really like, there's value in it being a guy that's only coached at big time programs. Cool. I think you learn a lot about coaching when you have less than optimal talent and incomplete pieces, because it requires you to game plan, and it isn't just a pure talent competition.
Paul, did you look into the background of his NFL corners and like what they profiled out of high school as recruits?
These were not elite recruits.
It was a lot of like New Jersey kids.
Undersized.
Low 3 stars, like 82, 83,
Yeah.
85, 77 on one of them, I noticed.
Yes.
And I read the background of at least one of them was like a star of his high school team, played quarterback, corner, receiver, classic like Beast Texas, Nathan Vasher, Quandre Diggs types, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go get this like raw, unspecialized athlete, and I'm going to teach him how to play coverage, and he's going to be really, really good at it. And
so Ian, to reinforce what you're saying, the guy he turned into a 2nd round draft pick was from Egg Harbor City, New Jersey. Not exactly a recruiting hotbed.
I don't even know where that is.
He was a mid 3-star. He was mid, Ian, your favorite word.
Uh-huh.
And 5'11", 165 as a high school senior. Classic. And ran a 4.640 at the opening, the regional opening in New Jersey. Not exactly a guy screaming off the boards. And guess what? They got him into Rutgers. They taught him the game. He grew. He left at 5'11", 190. Not exactly giant. And he got a lot. He got faster, but he was very technical. And if you read all of his NFL scouting reports about the draft, they're like one of the most technical players, extremely smart, et cetera, et cetera. So this guy's got a track record of development. And I think he'll be interested that he can now knock on the doors of 4 and 5 stars and pick and choose those guys where he sees upside. I think that's a pretty neat position to be in. And occasionally go grab that 3-star that you don't think the market has identified properly, and then do a nice I told you so when he becomes an NFL player.
I kind of think Texas got a steal here. I think they may have really hit a home run on this guy. I do wonder, though, he's been used to pulling kids out of Jersey and D.C., and presumably he will do well in Texas. Maybe a concern would be like in Texas. So in Jersey, it's like you're at Rutgers. You have to go find the best raw materials you can, right, to get in your quarterback room. At Texas, a lot of schools actually play really good athletes at corner in high school.
True.
And they get rated really highly. But they don't, as we've seen, they don't always, doesn't always translate as well as you would think based on the rankings. And I wonder what he'll make of that scene in Texas.
Well, I'll say this, Sark recruits highly rated players, not because they're highly rated.
Okay.
He's not trying to juice the class
right.
and sell false. I mean, you remember the dying years of Jimbo Fisher at A&M. He was like, take any 5-star that the services were dumb enough to call this guy a 5-star, even though the big programs have veered off the guy for either character concerns or he's actually not that good on the field. Jimbo's like, I want that guy because I need to juice my class ratings and stay ahead of the posse.
Tom Herman had a little of that as well.
Herman had a little of that. Mac Brown had a lot of that in the dying years.
Yeah.
Sark doesn't do that. And he doesn't really care. And he'll, if he feels like the players are better in California to position, he's just going to recruit California. Or if he feels like they've got a gem up in Piscataway, New Jersey, they'll go get that guy. So I think they're going to go where the real talent is and not just about trying to project out the best recruiting class and make the fans all happy. So I'm not concerned about that. And honestly, if this is a guy who will stand on the table for a high 3-star, great. But odds are the best players that he'll encounter are the 4 stars more than the 2 stars.
Well, sure. But Texas certainly has a million of those Jersey type kids if you're willing to look for them.
I agree.
Sometimes the 4-star kid is not that. He's going to run a 4.6 at the combine, just like he did in high school. He's already kind of maxed out a little bit.
I love that the chat is trying to prod you, Ian. There's a comment by Tyler Crestley. August 30th, Matt Patricia is going to conduct the coaching clinic against Steve Sarkisian.
Well, that'll be set an Ohio State celebratory banner that's screenshotted from YouTube. This is avatar. I don't really know what to make of that hire. Part of me thinks it's going to be a disaster. Part of me is like, how hard is it to coordinate an Ohio State defense?
Yeah, I think that's true. I'll say there's a larger track record of coaches who have left Bill Belichick, and it's not great.
Yeah,
so you may want to check that out, Tyler.
They do. They usually don't go to a college that recruits elite talent, though. They go to like another NFL program franchise, and yeah.
Tell you what, Columbus has got the market cornered on beard dye. Someone in the chat mentions Choice's wife just had a baby. NFL's much less time commitment to college. You know what? That's something we've talked about before in the deep dive. Strangely, and it would make the head spin of the classic 80s and 90s coaches like Jimmy Johnson and Joe Gibbs and Dick Vermeil. The college game is more hours and more time than the NFL game right now because of NIL, because of the portal, in addition to recruiting and, of course, game planning and the season, because the season's now almost as long if you're a good team. So
it's also crazy. Especially I think in the off season, like NFL end season can be pretty rough.
I mean, the NFL, if you're a position coach in the off season, you're off.
Yeah.
Like you can go do family vacations and you're not working. There's going to be some OTAs. There's going to be a couple of little meetings. You're going to go to those meetings in flip-flops and a t-shirt. I mean, and hang out and catch up with everybody and get some stuff, on board. But until the season cranks up, which is still a grind in the NFL, you have a real offseason. That real offseason does not exist in college football. You're always re-recruiting your roster. You're recruiting other people's rosters, and you're recruiting 16 and 17-year-olds in high school. And you're trying to stay on top of all that. So, and there's more players. Go.
It's kind of like being a teacher. Grind in the season, but then the off season is literally whatever you want.
Without the 3-week Christmas breaks and the 1-week spring break and all the various president days and all that.
Right.
I think Homer's trying to incite me in the private chat. So I think this is a really interesting opportunity for Texas, both to hire a good running back coach to replace Drayton. To replace Tashard Choice. That was the previous guy. It's not going to be Drayton. And then, of course, to reinvigorate the defensive side with a really promising coach. Ian and I have a sneaking suspicion. We don't pretend to be experts because we just went to school on this guy late yesterday. But I think we both independently are concluding that there's some good stuff in his background that suggests this is a real football coach who's pretty hungry, and he wants to recruit and develop athletes. And that's what we want at Texas. So if we don't have any parting questions or comments in the chat, we will conclude this deep dive by saying, make sure you pound the subscribe and like button on this video. Reward us. If you think we're the dynamic duo, if you think we're Batman and Robin, and you like what we're saying, what we're bringing, let us know. And let us know in the comments. And for sure, come join us at Inside Texas, where Ian and I are writing there every day. I think that we are going to have an interesting future at the University of Texas. And I think some of these new coaches are going to drive that. So for Ian Boyd, I'm Paul Wadlington saying, Ian Boyd, you have the last word.
I'm Batman.
You.